Alright, happy Homebrew Wednesday. This is my second Homebrew Wednesday video. I didn't really mean it to be so long since the first one, but that's what happens when life happens. So today I thought I'd mention the Reddit Brew the Book challenge. I've been on the Reddit, on the homebrewing subreddit a little bit here and there. I've been trying to be a little bit more active in it. And they started late end of year, early this year, something like that, a Brew the Book challenge, which is kind of interesting because I've read at least 8 homebrewing books that I know of, plus a few that aren't exactly homebrewing, like beer pairing, Brewmaster's Table, Secrets of the Master Brewers, although that one does have some recipes in it. And I thought, well, why not just try, because previous to this I think I've brewed 2 or 3 recipes out of how to brew when I got started. And since then, and I've been brewing for 8 years. Since then, I think I've done 2. And let's see, one was a few years ago. I did the Berliner Weiss recipe out of Homebrew All Stars. And just recently, in November or so 5 months ago maybe, 6 months ago I guess now, I did the Peppermint Porter from the Zymergy magazine, which turned out really well. So I said, why not do this? Brewing Classic Styles. This was written by Jamil Zanishev and John Palmer. You heard me mention How to Brew before. John Palmer wrote How to Brew. He's out there quite a bit. Both he and Zemil, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, run a podcast on Brewing Network. So they're fairly prominent people. This was also published by Ray Daniels. He's the founder of the Cicerone program, the author of Designing Great Beers. So, the publisher knows his stuff too. So I started going through this, and I thought, well, what 4 beers should I do from this? 4 was kind of arbitrary. I almost went to 5 because I did a barley wine that mostly came from this book, but it wasn't the exact recipe. So I'm calling it maybe a half entry. But I thought, man, I'd love a Pilsner because it was, when I started this, it was February-ish, was the first brew of it. And I thought, man, a Pilsner would be great for these springtime ball games. Obviously, I was thinking of that before this fucking virus. So I thought, well, I'll do a German Pilsner because that's a great summer beer. Then I thought, well, I've always liked good brown beers, but it's a style that's becoming more and more difficult to find, so I'll do a Northern English brown. Then I thought, well, I've always wanted to do a Dunkelweizen. I actually did one a few years ago, and it didn't turn out that well. Probably should have followed the recipe in this book as opposed to make my own, or follow those guidelines on Brew Your Own, one or the other. But it didn't turn out as well. I liked it partly, but partly it just wasn't that great, and it was not at all to style. So I thought, maybe a Hefeweizen or a Dunkelweizen, and then when we get in towards closer to October, maybe like July, August, I'll brew the Marzen beer that they have in here. Oktoberfest beers and Marzen beers is one of my favorite styles. So, the first beer, the German Pilsner. This is it. This is actually, there's a little bit of condensation on the glass. This just finally cleared up. So for a while it was not clear at all. It's got a very sweet aroma, almost an appley aroma, like what you would expect from DMS. No, not DMS. DMS is corn. Acetaldehyde. So it's almost got that, and I don't think it actually does have that. This was brewed with WLP 3470, the 3470 yeast, the Viehenstifeiner yeast. And that yeast has got a great name out for it. A lot of people say it's very clean. You can do a lot with it. You can even push it and do, mid-gravity beers with one packet, room temperature at ale pitching rates as opposed to lager pitching rates. So this is it. Now, the book says something like 36 IBUs, and I used Beersmith to get that as close as I could. And by as close as I could, I'm probably off by tenths, And obviously, the IBUs a lie. We know that. But it's still... This is sweet. It's starting to let some bitterness shine through now, but it's not nearly as bitter as this. And this is Bitburger. I'm not going to open it. I've had 2 of them. It's an excellent beer. It's a classic beer. In fact, I think it's like 3rd or 4th popular in Germany, and I can see why. It's not like our 3rd and 4th popular is probably Bud Miller or Coors. Obviously they've got probably the top 6 spots. For the heavy and the light beers. But this is a good beer. It is way more bitter than this. So I started looking into that, and flashback to the yeast experiments. There's been a few things said about my beers, like this.
It's got a nice. You don't pick up on some of the other hops that we put into this.
And this one.
It's not. There's a very slight bittering with this one. Probably the least bitter of the beers I've had thus far.
So this one too.
The hops are so muted.
So obviously there's something going on. And I've noticed this a little bit. So I think what happened, and I'm still testing this as a theory, but for a long time I used this fucking thing, this plate chiller. This is a Doodah Diesel plate chiller. You can buy it on Amazon. Don't buy it on Amazon. You can, but you don't want to. At least not if you're doing beer. And maybe if you're like, doing biodiesel where nobody's drinking it, okay, that's probably fine. In fact, if somebody does biodiesel and want this thing, let me know. I'd be happy. You just got to pay for shipping. But that thing, it seemed like no matter what I did, I couldn't get it clean. I could run through cleaning, OxyClean, whatever, PBR or PBW. I mean, just till the cows come in. At one point I forgot about it. I left cleaner recirculating through it for a few hours. Fortunately, I didn't burn up a pump. But you can't make it clean. So the following brew day, which might be a month later, I would start running a little bit of water through just to make sure, and it would push out all kinds of hop junk and brake material, all kinds of crap. And this was I was trying to bag up my hops, and I thought, well, the bags are a little bit of a pain to clean, so why not get one of these things? This is also something you can buy off Amazon. This one, the jury's kind of still out on it. So I've talked to people on Reddit and even other places that use these things, and they're great with them. They love them. They don't notice a difference. That's great. For me, it doesn't work. I think that's the problem. 2 issues. One is I boil for 5-gallon batches in a 15-gallon kettle. I bought it for a little bit of expansion capabilities, and I've used it before for a 10-gallon batch once. So this, when I'm boiling, this can't hook on the side and reach into the wort. So I actually take it and set it down on the floor of the kettle, which seems like it should work just the same way. I don't think it does. I've had problems with hops that actually get clogged up in this, and I was taking a paddle and sticking it down here and trying to stir them up and everything, trying to make sure I get as much bitterness as I can. And I don't think I was getting that. So, fast forward to the first beer after the yeast experiment beer when I started deciding there was a problem. That is this one, the Northern English Brown. It is actually pretty clear. This has not been kegged that long, maybe 2 weeks, if that. I don't think it's been kegged 2 weeks yet. In fact, I just force carbed it, so yeah, it's been kegged about a week, maybe. And now that I think about it, yeah, it's been kegged a week. Lovely, toasty, a little bit of chocolate maybe in the aroma. It's got some kind of chocolatey kind of flavors going on. Definitely some deeper malts going on, which is fine. It's a Northern English Brown. It's meant to be a little bitter, but not like, face meltingly bitter or anything. This was rated to have fewer IBUs than this. This one is more bitter than this. So that's the first good thing going on. I think I've nailed the problem. Even better, I only used a couple of ounces, maybe 3 ounces, 2.5 ounces of hops with this. No pump clogs. So that's great. And actually, if anyone's wondering, I replaced that stupid, that stupid plate chiller with a counterflow chiller that seems to be impossible to clog. I imagine my pump will probably clog first, which is fine. So, yeah, the Northern English Brown really turned out well. I'm pleased with it. And even better, one of the early times I've drank this is at night. We did some baked beans. My wife does great baked beans. She's got her own. I don't know if I want to call it a recipe because she doesn't measure anything. But the baked beans, onions, mustard, brown sugar, and she makes it to taste. And we always make them kind of early so that it has some time to simmer. This goes really well with that. And that's a nice summer dish, baked beans with brats or something on the grill. So, next beer, I don't know if it's going to be a Hefeweizen or a Dunkelweizen from this book, or if it's going to be the Martin. We'll see. I've got the Yeast Experiment Beer still in my kegerator. It's probably about to blow. I've been saying that for the last 6 pints or so, but I think I'm probably going to drink one of those this evening, so it'll probably blow. And then this one, I think there's going to be some more cooking being done with this. And also, when I last thing I brewed was an English barley wine. In fact, the yeast cake from this, which was Imperial Pub yeast, is where I put the barley wine. So I basically used this nice, Northern English Brown to prepare the yeast cake to handle a 9% barley wine. And it's only going to make it up to 10 because that's about the time where the yeast decides it's no longer going to work. Next note to self, next time check the yeast first and make sure it can go as high as I want it to, because fortunately I wasn't as efficient with the mash. Otherwise I might have a problem with the yeast deciding to cut out early. So next, when I bought the malt bill though for the English barley line, I went ahead and bought a malt to do another one of these. So I'm going to rebrew this. I'm going to rebrew it without that stupid screen, and I'm going to see if it's a little bit better. And hopefully, actually, it's a lot better. Hopefully, it's going to be closer to this. With everything going on with this virus, it's going to be nice to have a beer that, by the time it's ready, maybe we'll be getting back to being able to watch a little bit of sports or something like that. And if not that, I've got a backyard, I've got kids, we've got the next door neighbor's grandchild comes over often. That she's just a year younger than my youngest, so we've got 3 kids that are 3 years apart. So it's nice, sit outside and drink kind of beer. So, with that, cheers. Happy Homebrew Wednesday.
That's what I say. Well. My. Well. Let's take a ride. Music's bumping, people jumping. This might be the start of something good. Hey.